Thank you for joining us for today's virtual expo showcase, How HID Location Services Enables a Safe, Secure Campus. I'm John Ogle, Membership Engagement Manager for NACU. Joining me today from HID Global are Tim Nivlum, End User Business Manager for Higher Education, and Taylor Bryan, new Business Development Manager. Tim, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having us again. I think this is number 3 on the schedule, and I hope everybody that's joining today is doing well. I know everyone's trying to wrap up the end of this crazy year and hopefully turn the corner into 2021. So we appreciate you joining us again. What we're going to focus today on is a little bit different than what we've traditionally talked about when we talk about physical access control and cards and readers. And what we're really going to talk about today is a solution and a product around real-time location services. So we're going to talk about just some quick trends in higher education, the location services in general that Taylor's going to lead, talk about some of the best practices and value propositions, and then open it up to Q&A. So please, as John pointed out, feel free to ask any questions through the chat throughout the time being, and we'll kind of get going. So when we talk about trends in higher education, I mentioned it earlier, we've already covered a lot around the physical access control and the credentials and the mobile platforms. And what we're hearing a lot about is, or I think the whole country is, you hear social distancing, contract tracing, how do you manage occupancy in a building and those type of things. When we look at the current landscape, I've showed this slide in some previous presentations, but this was really born out of the COVID-19 global pandemic. It was something that the Davidson College put together. You'll find a map of 3,000 colleges, community college universities that show their fall plans and are now upgrading or updating their spring 2020 plans. There's about 70% of schools have reported, and it kind of just gives you a quick glimpse of what's going on in the country, who's fully online, who's doing hybrid, primarily in person. And I would encourage anybody that has not seen this before, there's a link there on the slide to check this out. It's pretty cool, pretty powerful dashboard for anybody that's interested. When we talk about the trends and really top challenges in higher education, we're as a country, everybody's talking about how do we get back to work. So we did a survey around the access control industry on what are the top 3 physical access challenges you encounter on a day-to-day basis. Well, when we compare the responses to all the responses, returning to work, improving convenience, and protecting against rising threats were the main, were the main 3. So, improving convenience gets combined with integrating into other systems, managing end of life and taking advantage of new technologies. And when we go to the next slide there, Taylor, oh, I'm sorry. And then, 55% are talking about, well, how do we return to campus safely? So when we get to talking about these challenges, and we're talking about real-time location services, unlike what we've talked about before, do you really know the real-time location of your students, staff, faculty, and visitors? Almost half don't know the number or location at any given time on campus. And how will this change going forward with situations like COVID? Contact tracing keeps becoming a really hot topic. It's become a huge risk, and it's a talking point for campuses. We have conversations with universities all the time where this is brought up. They're asking, what HID is doing in this space, how can we help? And what we're going to hit on here in the next few slides is how we can do that. We talk about the actual methods of monitoring. You can look at the red there, which is, your traditional access control. So, most campuses have a means to monitor, at least the access control side. but there's really a large portion that is unsure or has no method of all or using paper rosters. So again, as we think of COVID, viruses, like COVID that are could come down the road, universities are starting to wonder and think, how do we prep our enterprise to help combat these type of issues? And obviously, we were all thrown into this unexpectedly here in 2020. So I think administrators, university officials, everyone's trying to figure out how do we put our campus in the best situation for the future. And this leads me to my last slide before I pass it over to Taylor to get a little bit more into the product and details. I've touched on this slide before. When we talk about the challenges, campuses really need flexible solutions in uncertain times. And we talk about health and safety. So how do we get our campuses restarted safely? Are we doing everything we can? We don't know what the new normal will be. How are we attracting students? There's a number of students that are, thinking of, are we going to wait to come back to school? Are we going to enroll, take a semester off, those type of things? We're offering ways, to really sell yourself to the student experience. Are these solutions addressing the social awareness and safety initiatives that universities are looking at? And then I talk about managing the card office, which we typically talk about from a reader, credential cards or a mobile. When we think about the card office or any other building on campus, are we implementing solutions that will be relevant in the future? Thinking about putting stuff into place now that will be relevant in 5 years. Are these solutions, are they going to help the building infrastructure just to meet the student demand, of helping them have a safe and healthy, positive experience on campus. And so all that saying is just to kind of talk about, really what's going on in the university landscape. I know we all are trying to figure out the next steps and how 2021 is going to be. So on the next few slides, I'm going to pass it over to Taylor, and he's really going to hit on what real-time location services is from HID, how that works, how it plays into campus life, and how a university could take advantage of this type of solution. Taylor, all yours.
Yep. Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Taylor Bryan. I'm the global lead for HID's location services product line. I like to start off with what is location services, how to come about. From HID's place as a global leader for access control, we really started looking at what's next, right? What's going to happen next with buildings, smart buildings, IoT, common name. But how are people going to use the space? COVID then struck as of February, March, January this year. The location services was already being thought about, and I think that with COVID, all it's done is really expedited the go-to-market for location services type products. The traditional name for location services is called real-time location systems, or RTLS, and you'll hear me refer to RTLS very often. It's a very generic and open-ended vertical. It's about active locating. Today, if everyone on this call grabbed their phones, got on Google Maps, you're all using an RTLS system because Google can see that you are now using their phone, you're using the app, and you're giving away your position to their algorithm to locate you. So locating people and assets, real-time locating. Now you can see how this ties into COVID, because now you can see how many people are around each other in a given area. So our intention is to still maintain privacy, but provide you as an end user, as a university specifically, with a lot of different information or data points to help you be more effective. University campuses are large, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 15 million square feet sites. So knowing where people are, knowing where assets or items of monetary value are, knowing how equipment is working. It allows you to do a lot of things, allows you to enhance your security, help you with occupancy. And I'm really going to look at where we are probably for the next 6 to 12 months, given it is a COVID world, but also where we're going afterwards, because this isn't just a simple drop in the bucket. This is like pouring a 3-gallon pitcher into a bucket because of all the different enhancements and workflows it provides. And that's what we're focusing on as we head into 2021 and 2022, I would say, for calendar and fiscal budget years. So what this all means is HID can now provide affordable real-time awareness. I say affordable because this type of technology has been around for a decade, but at a price point that no one can afford. I go back and I always give the example of 2000, I think it was 4 or 5 when I was still in school, and I had to carry a little clicker around that I had to buy with my books for $25. Beacons today that we're going to talk about are $25, but it's not just a beacon you click. It's something that you can use a ton more data with for a lot of classes. So we're looking at a shift, Moore's law of technology, becoming more available, more affordable at a faster pace, creating events and alerting. This technology is meant to scale. It's not meant for 100 employees or 100 assets. You won't get your money out of it. It's meant for 500,000, 10,000, 20,000. One of our largest healthcare clients is now just peaked over 50,000 products being used across 36 different buildings. So creating and monitoring a lot of alerts across a large campus is really what we're looking at. Providing scale, reduces costs, brings more ROI to universities right now that are actually hurting for budget, just like healthcare systems. I will touch on the 3 main components for 2021. So I think these are the hot topics of 2021. Occupancy, compliance, contact tracing. I'll cover how we go through occupancy, counting, entering buildings, leaving buildings, usage of buildings, contact tracing. I just went and got a COVID test today. I got one on Monday and it came back negative when I was throwing up. But I took another COVID test today. Who did I come in contact with? I think for the next 6 months, we're going to be dealing with this. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And so I'll cover a lot of the different technologies and ways that we can do that, and how HID is expanding to work with our clients to do that, and with other technologies that you may use. What does RTLS really look like? I can talk about locating people, and I can talk about Google Maps, but I like showing visuals. So here you're seeing a time lapse of an 8-hour day, 100+ beacons or active tags. We're slowly but surely moving into mobile device tagging as well. But how's this building being used? If you look at this floor plan, it's a large conference hall. It's about 50,000 square feet. I can see 100 beacons in a main conference hall. I can see how individuals are moving. I can see that people are going to present. People are walking out to grab coffee. Now we're moving to breakout rooms. So I can see how these buildings are being utilized. Classrooms are being utilized. We can create heat maps and events. If someone goes into a room they should not be in, I can create an alert. If I'm looking for a printer, I am looking for a golf cart, I am looking for something on campus that costs money, I can tag it now. I can see where a key last went. We've looked at integrating with key tracking systems like Traka and others to identify where did these keys go, where did these other types of equipment go. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make this more seamless. And so I'll cover as we go through, how are we getting this data, where are we putting this data, and give you a few out of the box ideas as we look into 2021, going into 2022, about what else we can do with this product line. This current slide that you're looking at is really a scale of what are we looking at from low-end technology, pen and paper, to highest end technology, ultra wideband. I'll start with ultra wideband because everyone's like, what's that? Well, if you've bought an iPhone 11 or iPhone 12, you have purchased ultra wideband. The newest iPhones have ultra wideband chips in them. the newest Apple Watch. The Apple Watch 6 has an ultra wideband chip in it. It's a technology that is yet to set real parameters. It's on a certain frequency, but today there are two different consortiums for ultra wideband. Apple is creating their consortium, and then there's another consortium called FIRA, which HID is a part of, that is trying to help develop standards with a lot of other companies, over 100 different companies. But ultra wideband is a high-tech way to locate items. HID is looking to incorporate it in future into our readers, so that we'll have ultra wideband readers on the walls, our new Signal readers. It already incorporates BLE in the Signal readers. So we're now taking these technologies and adopting it to make it more useful as the cost comes down. The cost to implement UWB is quite expensive. Your iPhone is over $1,000. A ultra wideband tag is about $100. So from pen and paper to ultra wideband, there's a lot of different technologies you can look at today. Most on this call are very aware of pen and paper. I check out an asset. I am doing contact tracing. I am counting people coming into a building. It's a low cost to implement. It's a low cost to maintain. It's all labor, right? You're not looking at any automation. Reporting is low. So what we're looking at doing is finding that happy medium. How can we automate these tasks, but not cost you any more money? Both access control and vision or camera type systems are also deployed, but they're not automated. They're not connected. So what we're looking at with location services is a way to put occupancy, contact tracing, asset allocation into a cost-effective deployment. BLE is what we're looking at for a easier way to deploy. So it's going to cost, but maintaining it is minimal. You get 3 to 4 year life expectancy on beacons and tags. You can use and adopt other technologies you may have deployed, such as Aruba with their BLE or Mist Juniper with their BLE. And even Cisco's now come along with some BLE in their gateways. So many of these campuses, many of the universities we're talking to today probably already use some form of BLE in access points. Tying these technologies together is what we're aiming to do to give you data. So education, what are the workflows that most come out? Right now, contact tracing, obviously, but once we come back to school, everyone has a vaccine sometime next year. What else can we use this technology for? I made an investment. I'm doing contact tracing now, but I'm looking at later. Well, student safety one. How and where are students? Assaults on campus. We have the big blue boxes, right, in the middle of some campuses. How can I provide a duress beacon or some type of tag for students as they're crossing the campuses or going to lunches? Time and attendance. How many people are actually at lunch? Who's using the cafeteria? We're checking everyone in as they come in, but we're not signing them out. Exit readers is actually not very common in a lot of locations. So truly the in and out monitoring of areas for mustering and zoning, time and attendance in classrooms. These are workflows that we already want today. Visitor location and tracking. And then I'll cover the mobile beacon, but many of you have probably seen what HID has been doing at Vanderbilt and at Clemson University, and something that we're looking to do later on in 2021 with mobile beacon locating. So how else are we looking at the student experience? You know, how are things changing? Well, with opening doors and coming back, we're heavily looking at compliance. In California, for instance, at the beginning of January, there's a new law, AB 685, which you have to provide notice of COVID-19 exposure in a workplace. Okay, a lot of states are now actually starting to do this, knowing that for the next 12 months we're going to have issues. So how can I automate campuses, sites for exposure and an imminent hazard? We can do that automatically with RTLS and with beacons and locating individuals. This provides now zonal location accuracy. The idea is to get the folks that have to come back. We're not having to slow down. We're not having to wait. We have a way to automate this and bring them back and comply with federal and local compliance. This data now requires that someone that you're now paying $20, $30, $40 an hour hourly wage in, say, California or state of Washington, New York, you can now automate these types of systems. The same staff that you had 6 months ago or as the year started before COVID can now operate these systems very effectively and quickly. And the idea is to provide accurate data real time. So what does this look like? We've been talking a lot about beacons and gateways. There's three main components. There are our beacons. The beaks come in different form factors. So you have duress, you have assets, you have card holders, you have a fob. The fob is our newest launch. It'll be coming in this January. And the fob allows you to do full social distancing. So a lot of our clients are using the fob to basically, as people walk in and you say, you sign your little COVID form that I've not been sick today, and you get your temperature read, I hand you a fob. When you leave the facility, you hand the fob back. It's documented. Tim came in, Tim grabbed a fob, Tim went into the building, Tim came back, dropped off the fob. I can see then, as fobs communicate to fobs, who is social distancing, who is interacting. That data is loaded real time into gateways. As I mentioned, we have our own gateways, several different form factors. We're also looking to integrate with companies like Aruba and Mist to use their BLE receivers and their gateways to pass our data. We pass that data over the Wi-Fi network into a cloud. Why cloud? Well, it's easiest to scale. And I mentioned at the beginning, it's meant for thousands of beacons. We have a lot of sites tracking rental equipment, any type of a piece of equipment that is has an operational cost, a monthly cost, a weekly cost, we are now locating. So we're finding that as you scale, you need a cloud. You don't want to host this environment yourselves. And then the use case, so how you're going to visualize this data varies. I don't want to control, HID doesn't want to control your data. If you want to integrate it to your asset tracking system, you can do that. If you want to integrate it to Salesforce or ServiceNow, you can do that. The idea is to provide numerous types of beacons, numerous types of workflows, get that data uploaded quickly to the cloud, and then provide you all the data that you want. A lot of different ways we can provide that data with geofences and alerts and APIs. So it's real time. You're not having to wait 2 or 3 or 4 days. This also helps reduce the cost. So when we're looking at contact tracing, and like I said, another 12 months, we'll be working with this. You're already putting the infrastructure in place to scale an RTLS system. You're using beacons, you're using gateways, and you're using the cloud. So now we look at, well, how do we want to solve contact tracing? I want to know who's come in contact with who. Were they 6 feet or not? Are too many people in the cafeteria, right? Or do they have their fob? Are they in violation? Many companies in California that we've worked with, when you come in, if you don't have your fob, you're not allowed into the building or onto the campus. So carrying that is a way to keep standards, real-time compliance of how buildings are being used and who you're coming in contact with. And then I jump all the way to the far right box, safe operations, right? How are these buildings being cleaned? What are your cleaning crews doing? Contractors that are coming on site for work, how are they using the facilities? This system can be repurposed. So for the next 3 months, contact tracing. 3 months later, repurpose everything for another workflow. The system is meant to be reused. And because of the battery life, we can get 3 years on several of these beacons and monitoring systems. So contact tracing in its most basic form indoors can be done in 2 ways. One with RTLS, which I showed you earlier, mustering, occupancy, all of that. The other is social distancing. With RTLS, it's very simple. We create a grid of zones to identify where people are going. Based on how accurate you need that zone to be, we will add more gateways. So I can then see source employee or student going into the library. How did they use the library? Where did they go? Who else was in the library? All of this information is getting automated and uploaded. If the next day someone goes to their phone and says, hey, I have COVID, and they hit enter, you immediately now know to go search through all the different beacons that that person came in contact with. The data is automated. You're not having to cold call and find these people and track them down. It's there. You know they're on your premise, you know where they were. But as I mentioned, what happens 2022, right? I'm already jumping a year ahead. Mustering. There's unfortunately school shootings still happening. There are earthquakes, tornadoes, fires. Who's on my campus? Where are they? That peace of mind is one very strong component. Visitor management, right? Are people on my campus that aren't supposed to be there? Well, I can check that with the camera system and automate the integration there. So a lot of this information can be automated into other systems. As I use these beacons, as I identify where individuals are going, I can check it with the camera systems. This is an example of Genetech. We've talked to companies like Milestone and Avigilon. So how am I now automating their really strong workflows and workflow engines? They just need to pull in our data. It makes their tools more effective. Facial recognition is going to be voted down pretty much in every state. Already in Europe, GDPR is a major issue with education. So we're seeing that we have to have a new anonymous way to identify individuals. RTLS is that way. It's a low cost, effective way that you can work with your camera systems real time to identify things happening without having to do facial recognition and track people that way. The access control systems just aren't as in enough places, so it's harder to use for location accuracy. Attendance. So this is a dashboard of one of our partners over in Ireland. They created a front end dashboard for time and attendance for different classes, different departments. As I mentioned, when I was in college back in 04, 05, we had a little clicker. Everyone comes into class, you had to push your little clicker. You had to wait 30 minutes, go through class, and then the teacher would say, hey, push your clicker again. Make sure you're there. I think with video conferencing and where we're going with tele education, I still think in-person teaching will come back. That clicker was $25. I remember that because I lost it and I had to pay someone, I think my parents, back for it to return it at the end of the year. Our beacons now are $22. So this beacon lasts 3 years. I can use it for 5 classes, 6 classes. I keep it in with my student ID, or eventually it becomes a mobile ID, right? I have it on my phone. So we're looking at how can we generate the revenue for the universities. And I think that's what we're coming back to now, is that we need students back. I know my sister has 4 kids and I had to babysit all 4 of them last week, and teleteaching is not the best way to do it. So we want them back in the classrooms. And I think that at that point in time, this solution can be used for that too. This is a sample of one of the mobile apps that we created. The other thing that I realized is that I would be in class and I'd click my little button and the teacher said I wasn't there. Well, no, now with the mobile device, I can see when I was actually clicked into class. It's a bi-directional time and attendance. Technology can now do this for us. So we're looking at mobile as being that next iteration. Putting infrastructure in place as well has been costly. So right now with contact tracing, what we're seeing is that the fob approach is best for the next probably 6 to 12 months. Everyone gets a beacon when they enter the campus. You get your temperature scanned right at your forehead. As soon as you get your temperature scanned, I hand you a fob. That fob is then used for the day. You hand it off at the end of the day. And I now know everyone you came in contact with. If I was annoying Tim, if I was walking down the hallway, I now know that. The gateways only need to be put about every 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, especially in large areas. You don't need as many, but it's allowing you to upload data real time. But what you're doing is you're putting a foundation in place for the future. This money doesn't get wasted. It's being used for occupancy and zone history, things like that. So we see this as really taking off. We have orders coming in nonstop right now. And we're seeing acceptance quite a bit in a lot of other vertical markets. I think healthcare has still been kind of 50-50 on what does the future hold. And I think that's when you have to look towards the future is how can you get your money back for a system like this, but also provide compliance to gate and automate, because we're burning out. People are getting very tired of this. That's why accounts are going up. This is another example of one of our clients on the building automation side, Johnson Controls. They're actually one of the first. They put this in a metalworking shop down in Mississippi to track 200 custom fab workers. Well, what are they doing? They want to know everywhere these guys go, locker rooms. We're not talking thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for this. The NFL, NBA, they have millions of dollars. Manufacturing companies don't. So having a $50 fob communicating with other people that would last for 9 months, that's a huge ROI. That changes the game. It allows us to do compliance reviews. Should this many people be in an area? Here on the left, you can see red zones, blue zones, and green zones. So identifying areas of a campus or a library that aren't being used, kind of like the parking garage little tickers at the airport, right? And then, and this looks a little small, so apologies, but who are your super spreaders? How do you stop people from meeting with other people? One of the benefits of this technology is we can add up that time and that duration. Where are people going? Who's spending the most time in certain areas, and who are they come in contact with? So this is more on the employee side, or if you have public, private libraries or other areas where you have multi-tenant environments, we can see, how often are these individuals coming in contact with one another, and where did they go? The example I give is one of the pilots that we first ran was in Austin. Excuse me. In Austin, we had a 50-person pilot. We used duress beacons for our offices, and we used the fobs for our warehouse. And we ran multi-pilots, tested everyone, who's coming in contact with who, where are they going? Just like university, you have different environments, right? Not everywhere is the same. So bringing back your essential employees, getting back to the day-to-day is important for your first phase. But this product's going to be used for many more years. There's so many different things that we can do with it as we expand and as we move into asset tracking and looking at, do we need that much real estate? Are more people going to be working from home, and can we shut down campuses and open up doors? So I keep talking about 2022, and yes, I am talking 2022. We are looking at the future because we have to. What else do you look at doing? What are other things that you've heard, from the card office? I've spoken with a lot of folks from the card office. We cross a lot of different departments. IT, which some people like to deal with. I love working with IT, but sometimes IT says no, they're the no folks, right? Whose budget is it coming from? Facilities and plant operations always has tons of things that they have to monitor, refrigerators, temperature, equipment. We have tons of products that monitor vibration. Then you look at carbon footprint reduction. How can campuses now reduce their carbon footprint? How can it be more modern, more green? As you look across the university, across the spectrum of different departments and staff, there's all of this digital transformation happening. We're looking to provide a platform that can provide all that. And we've seen it. We've seen the environmental impact really take hold when you use the system across your cooling, conditioning, and occupancy of your spaces. Not going to cover the architecture again, have it there. One thing I mentioned was integrations. So we're looking to build plugins. One company that we've already built plugins to is with Aruba. Aruba is a large Wi-Fi access point provider. They actually today have their own kind of competing system to HID, but it's about 4 to 5 times our cost. It's used somewhat. They're not heavily focused on it, but we can use their technology. We can actually use the Aruba receivers to pass our data to other systems. So going through our cloud, going through our workflow engine, we can work with other technologies. Mist and Juniper Mist is another strong partner of ours. We're working at a lot of universities where they're upgrading their Wi-Fi right now, putting in BLE with their Wi-Fi. We can work with these different companies and use their gateway. So it's less infrastructure to deploy. You still need beacons, you still need software, but you're not having to go run more hardware everywhere. So these types of companies we are really working with heavily, helping build multi-year rollouts and plans. Cisco is another one that we've began conversations with, but it's all around what you're trying to accomplish. Entrances, exits. Are people in the room or are they not? Time and attendance, contact tracing. These are things that aren't going to go away for another 12 to 24 months. And as we scale, we're going to see more of this coming through when we go to mobile and using mobile devices to do the same thing. When I come on site, my phone gets picked up by that mobile, the mobile device gets picked up by the access point. When I leave site, I'm not touching it anymore. So you still get your privacy, but you can control it to the buildings and to the locations that you're in. Everyone talks about how to design and the different options for design. I have two top layouts that are, one was a library, one was an office. But what type of accuracy are you looking for? Are you doing hoteling? Are you doing hot desking for your libraries for students to come in? On the bottom right is an open campus. This is actually a large facility. It's I think it's over 2 million square feet outdoors. And they wanted to find golf carts and other mechanical equipment at a refinery. So how are you finding that product, right? Who's coming onto your site? They wanted to then track the individuals on the golf carts as they drove around, right? Where are people going? What are they doing? So we created an outdoor environment with an indoor environment. So a lot of different ways to use this type of system, a lot of different ways to deploy it. This is just another detailed layout of an indoor facility. We are basically looking at conference rooms, kitchens, elevator lobbies, points of interaction where people always come in contact with one another and seem to forget that they talked to someone in the hallway for 10 minutes. This can be integrated to a lot of dashboards. So one company we work with, Zulafly, they work a lot in healthcare. So I don't know if we have any joint healthcare and EDU teaching hospital type clients, but we see this across all the consortiums of all your different businesses. University is not just a teaching institution anymore. They are businesses. So the education side definitely benefits from technologies like this. This year has been a long year of integrations. We're seeing more coming. I didn't put them all up here, but Honeywell, Genentech, Johnson Controls, Aruba, Mist. These companies touch 80% of the market. So we're definitely seeing, the request to integrate and the request to tie systems together to automate contact tracing and other types of workflows. But lastly, I'll go through a case study and then talk to some of the must-haves as we go through this. And from a case study standpoint, again, safety and compliance is a unanimous pick for utilization by departments. Where are your professors going? How are they using these buildings? Real estate is costly, right? Campuses have a lot of it. So can we simplify? Can we streamline? In this case study, that's what they wanted to do. They had a lot of leased tenants that weren't using their buildings. It was costing them a lot of money. And so they basically looked at, okay, how can we get rid of that extra space? From an occupancy standpoint, it was important to know who and where the visitors were. A lot of staff going into areas they should not be in. At the other side of it, we're going to see more of a hot desking or hoteling as we head into 2021, meaning that office assignments will be open. That's to reduce the space and to reduce the rents and leases that you may have on third-party buildings in different cities and towns. So a lot of different benefits that we're seeing from this. Department by department, people are going to want to use it differently. So best practices, and I'll quickly hit this and then jump into a Q&A. Right now, it's infection control, right? Reduce the impact of infection, contact tracing. They talk about the peak is going to be in January when schools come back. Probably will head into February. But 50 million doses out by, I think by March. I guarantee none of those are going to be students. It's all going to be over essential employees and our elderly. So we're still going to be dealing with this for another 12 months. So infection control and compliance is going to be key. And then we're going to easily shift into operational efficiency. So we're going to take this product, we're going to look at how are we bringing people back, and then how are we using the space. You get a double use case there: real estate and energy. Reducing costs, reducing operational costs is another huge benefit to this. And at the end of the day, productivity, right? If we can be more productive, if we can automate more processes, then we don't need to hire as many employees, which means we have more money back in the budget. Now, we're not trying to get rid of people. I'm not saying that, but right now we're trying to streamline businesses, and technologies like this can help us provide a positive impact into your environment. So at the end of the day, collaborate with stakeholders. I've had dozens of calls around these types of technologies, and establishing your budget, identifying who can be a stakeholder. Is it the students? Is it the IT department? Is it the engineering department? Is it the business and admin department? Try to get more stakeholders. The more people involved, it is more complicated, but more that share the budget, more that see the value. And we can do lots of different case studies and workflow studies, assessments. And at the end of the day, really just proof of concepts, showing you it works, getting you to kind of limp through COVID and get to the goal line, right? That's what we're all looking for. Site surveys and inventory of your existing technologies is key. You don't want to spend money when you don't have to. If you have something that can integrate, we can tie it in. That's what we look at. Tying systems together is the best way to deploy something like this. And then 5 years. I try to look at 3 years typically is where most IT contracts run, but 5 years is really how long is the technology to be usable? We're thinking 5 years out. Mobile, UWB, BLE, these things aren't going to go away for the next 5 to 10 years. So we're looking at a technology you can deploy to use for multiple reuses, multiple distance solutions, and it can be used annually or a CapEx. And then start small. Let's prove it works. There are 85 different companies in this space. There are only 5 that generate half the revenue. That means there are 70 plus companies that are under $5 million. They're startups. You don't know if they're going to be around in 2 or 3 years. So do your homework, right? And we're happy to help with success criteria and help you find the right solution you're looking for. So with that said, I'll jump back to Tim, but jump into any questions that may have come in, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Do you have a question about, do you have to be a current HID customer to take advantage of this type of technology, or can anyone?
I think that's actually one of the beauties of this technology. It's right now not tied into the access control system from HID. It is a standalone system. Longer term, heading into 2021, we are tying it in, so it will benefit. But no, this is a separate bag of tools that you can utilize. And no, so if you're not an HID client today, that's fine. But longer term, we are tying the systems together to add more functionality for HID systems.
And we have another question. With budgets what they are, how do you propose we pay for this type of solution?
The number one question. I look at it as a multi-year ROI. So I look at what were the challenges pre-COVID, what are the challenges with COVID, and what are the challenges after COVID. When you look at spending this type of money, you need to have a year-to-year ROI. So working with the different departments to determine your costs and your loss. Typically what we do is I look at is it an asset or is it a person? And then what is the risk associated to that? We then can back into doing a per beacon cost per year. And that's really where the cost comes in. So if I'm at $100 per beacon per year for the whole system, then I need to find $100 worth of time saving activities. If I'm paying someone $20 an hour, then I need to save that person 5 hours in 12 months, right? So that's how we back into it. You got to find that time and that savings, and that's what we're doing with contact tracing. It's actually been it's been actually easier because so many companies are having to hire more staff that if I say, hey, go contact trace for bin, that took me 3 days, 20 phone calls. How many hours is that? How much are you paying them hourly? Right there, you have the ROI. So finding things like that has been useful. Energy and how we're using space, or even reducing your commercial leased environment. Before this all happened, Microsoft actually in Stockholm went from a 50,000 square foot office down to a 30,000 square foot office. Saving 20,000 square feet of commercial lease space in a year was well over $250,000 in savings. So real estate is the fastest way to reduce space. Hey, we don't need this big of a campus anymore. We don't need to be leasing out land that we don't own, things like that. That helps you reduce your costs.
Thanks, Taylor. And then if someone wanted to pilot or test, what does that really look like? How would someone go about that?
Yeah, so from a pilot standpoint, what we look at is typically 10 to 20 beacons, about 10, 20,000 square foot area, and we test it. Typically it's under, a $10,000 cost, if not less. But our goal is to get the product in your hands to prove that it works. What we more though have to do is like the last question, establish what is the objective, right? What are we winning from this? What, as an end user, what is the goal? And then quantify that. And then we'll back into the pilot from doing it. So it's actually pretty quick, pretty easy. We work with our integrators, whomever is your installer or whomever is helping you set up the sites for other access control, video management, or IT systems. We'll work with them. Everything's online and automated. We can't travel. I haven't been on an airplane in 9 months, where I flew 285 days last year. So we have had to automate and make it simple. And you can actually self-install the pilots as well as we get going.
We have another question / comment that I can see coming up. So Taylor, how is this typically usually addressed? Says our athletic department installed some beacons and they had to deactivate them because students felt like they were being big brothered, even though students weren't really being tracked, and this was more for attendance tracking. So can you comment on that? It's
a chicken and egg scenario. You're supposed to be in class, but you're not supposed to be tracked that you're in class. We've seen different conversations around this. Like I said, on the work side for employees, the way a large tech company told us was that either you come on site or you don't. And if you come on site, you have to carry the beacon. It's not really you don't really get a choice in the matter. But what they've done to augment that is say, here's your data, here are sample reports. These are things that we're showing. And when you come up, they're showing them the actual, how the information is being used. At the end of the day, the way they did is they actually put the access ID onto the fob. So I don't see that it's Tim Nybloom heading to the bathroom, right? I see that it's ID number 1005. It's reactive data that you're going to pull to show that we're not tracking you. Now, if you use it for time and attendance, it is what it is. I need to know you're in that classroom. I need to know you're going to class. I know that I went to Texas A&M and I had a lot of friends that were athletes, and there were student aides outside every athlete's classroom, making sure they went to class. A lot of times we would try to offer them free lunches so that they would just write us in when we weren't going to class. But at the end of the day, you're supposed to be going to class. How are you going to argue that with a coach? You know, you're supposed to carry your IDs, you're supposed to carry your fob and go to class. So I think that is a conversation that they need to have with those coaches. But yeah, nothing's changed in 25 years when it comes to students going to classes, and especially athletes.
No kidding, right? Well, I'm looking if there's any other questions. Nothing that I see right now. You know, and I think, John, with that, I could probably, you know, throw it back to you and we could wrap up. You know, I want to take a second and appreciate everyone who listened today. And, you know, it's definitely, you know, just another offering from the HID side, as, you know, what universities could take a look at, you know, now and in the future. And we're happy to, you know, chat about this in more detail with specific projects or answer any questions. And, you know, I appreciate, Taylor, you joining as well.
Guys, thanks so much for the presentation. That was some really good detail. I think you did a good job also with answering some of the questions that came through here at the end. One of the things I'll just say, first off, is, you know, as we go into the last part of our showcases, you know, by all means, please check out our virtual schedule online. Check out our website at www.nacu.org. Special thanks again to Tim and Taylor for presenting today from HID. I'm John Ogle with NACU. Enjoy your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.